Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today I finally have the end game Cold Minion Necromancer update for you. And I'm sorry that this one took a really long time, but it took a lot of testing and different ways of building it to really figure out how I was going to give the minions decent survivability in the end game, and then finally defeat tier 4 𝐒𝐿𝐴. Now the problem with the Necromancer skeleton mages, and especially the skeleton archers, is that they have very low survivability, especially when you start scaling up that end game corruption. To offset this, we tried a bunch of things. Minion health regen turned out to just kind of be a joke, especially at higher corruption. They just don't regen enough life, and you're much better off trying to get them to leech as much as possible, which means, especially for the skeleton mages, having as much maximum health is really the only thing that you care about. Now their survivability can still be weakened against spirals, especially the poison spirals, so if you go into an echo with those, I definitely recommend just leaving. It's not even worth it. One poison spiral at 300 corruption is just going to kill your minions almost instantly, so definitely avoid that. Outside of that, they actually have really good survivability because they are leeching a ton of the damage they do, and thanks to the Lich's Scorn, which has that interaction of giving them flat damage per Infernal Shade when you have the Dread Shade active, it ends up giving them a ton of flat cold damage, so their damage is really good. However, if you let that Dread Shade wear off, which it lasts for 40 seconds in this setup, then it will end up reducing their damage significantly. So it is kind of irritating in battle and sometimes in the middle of echoes that you got to redo the Infernal Shades and then redo the Dread Shade, but it's totally doable. Outside of that, you can go through echoes pretty quick. We also iterated in the new zombie belt so that we can have a ton of zombies, which give us a ton of ward and a ton of parasites for a ton of minions overall, and you get flat armor per minion. So our survivability as a low life build with a lot of armor is very, very good. Our minion survivability is great, and you can definitely push to 300 plus corruption with this build and do all the bosses in the game. With that in mind, let's go ahead and dive into it. Alright, for skills, I'm running a Summon Skeleton, Summon Volatile Zombie, Summon Skeleton Mage, Red Shade, and Infernal Shade. For Summon Skeleton, we have as many of these as possible as we can get. We also have it to where we're only using the Bowman. So we got 4 points in Unbound Necromancy, 1 point in Gravewalkers, 3 points in Unholy Rage, 1 point in Marrow Walkers, 1 point in Lone Guardian, 1 point in Mightier Than the Sword, 5 points in Necrotic Conviction, 1 point in Hollow Walkers, and then the 3 points in that Marrow Tap for that health leech. We want our minions to have as much leech as possible, as that will be their life sustain for this build. Then for Summon Volatile Zombies, we have this set up so that we're getting as many of them as possible. We're getting the parasites and they're giving us ward. They also have kill threshold, which is really nice against bosses. So we got 2 points in Path of Destruction, 2 points in Necromantic Fervor, 1 point in Vital Ward, so they give us a ton of ward every time one of them die, and we will get lots and lots of them. 1 point in Fervor, 1 point in Daunting Blast, 2 points in Ravenous, 2 points in Pull of the Grave so that we have that kill threshold with them. Very nice against bosses and 𝐒𝐿𝐴. 2 points in Dreadful Horde so that we get more zombies per cast, and we use the belt with the experimental fix zombies on potion use. Mine currently has 4, and you get the extra 4 zombies per zombie on the belt. So I'm actually getting 20 zombies every time I use a potion. And then with 2 points in Vile Force, I'm also getting 2 parasites per zombie. So you get yourself 20 zombies per potion use, which gives us 40 parasites. If you spam all 5 potions right off the bat, you can have 100 zombies and up to 200 parasites. Now they only last 4 seconds, so you probably won't see them get quite that high, as it does take time for the zombies to die, but you get lots and lots of them. And remember, thanks to our passive, we're getting flat armor per minion, so by spamming those potions, not only getting ward from the zombie deaths, you're getting flat armor, so you become very, very tanky as well. Then for Summon Skeleton Mage, we have it set up so that we're using the cold mages. We got 4 points in Splintered Dominion, 5 points in Gravetide, 1 point in Cryomancers so that they're cold, 1 point in Frostlich so that we're only getting the cold ones. It removes all the other mages, 5 points in Cellar Mortis to give them a huge amount of base crit chance, 3 points in Grey Merchant, and this is where their survivability really comes into effect. They get their maximum health healed on crit, so they get 15% of their total health healed every time they crit, so we are building towards 100% crit with them and as much health as possible, which is why they have really good survivability. Of course, the Necromancer minions are meant to die off, so eventually when you scale enough corruption, eventually they will die, but they do have really good survivability, and we were able to do everything in the game. For Dreadshade, we have this set up for as much area as possible, as much flat damage, and then as much attack speed as possible, as well as a extra Infernal Shade. So we got 3 points in Spectral Presence, 1 point in Lone Watcher, so it no longer drains your health, but instead makes your minion do or take increased damage. This also increases the duration from 20 seconds to 40 seconds, so it will last longer. 3 points in Dying Coben, so they all get increased attack and cast speed. 4 points in Grim Fate, so they have increased damage. 1 point in Blind Fury, so the Dreadshade that's actually on the targeted minion is going to have even additional attack and cast speed. 2 points in Wisdom of the Dead, 1 point in Congregation of Shade, get +1 maximum shade. Remember, for each shade that we have active, when we have Dreadshade come up, or for each Infernal Shade that's active, you're going to have 10 more flat damage added to all your minions, which is huge. 1 point in Flesh Harvest, and then 4 points in Lingering Doom for that necrotic damage, which it is converted to cold thanks to the Religious Scorn, so it's 12 flat cold damage for our minions as well. And then for Infernal Shade, we have this set up to target our minions, and we have it set up to spam 3 of them at once, so we don't have to sit there and spam it 6 times before we do the Dreadshade. So 2 of these spammed, and then a Dreadshade will give you all the Infernal Shades and all that flat damage. So we got 3 points in Influence, 1 point in Devour in Flames, 1 point in Burn Trail, 1 point in Subjugation, 3 points in Manic Prior, 3 points in Cackling Flames, 1 point in Flight of Fire for that extra maximum shade, 4 points in Ignition to make it cheaper, 1 point in Wildfires, and then 2 points in Legion so that we are casting 3 of them at a time. So 2 casts gives you 6 Infernal Shades, and then you can cast your Dreadshade, giving you that 60 flat damage for all the minions inside the aura. For passives, we got 21 points in the Acolyte with 8 points in Forbidden Knowledge, 8 points in Stolen Vitality, 4 points in Dark Rituals, and 1 point in Soul Aegis so that the minions have armor per level. In our case, we're level 94, so they have about 282 armor, which just gives them a little extra survivability. It's not much. No points in the Lich, and then 86 points in the Necromancer, our mastered class, with 6 points in Risen Army, 5 points in Reclamation of Souls. What's really nice about this passive is we get 35 ward per minion death, and remember, the zombies dying and all the parasites dying is giving us a ton of ward generation from this node, and that's why we really took it, and why you really want that experimental effects on the belt. 3 points in Cursed Blood, 4 points in Aegis Fall for that minion armor shred chance. With all the minion hits we're getting, we're shredding a lot of armor. 1 point in Blood Armor, 5 points in Mortal Tether, 1 point in Unbound Necromancy, 1 point in Mark of Punishment. Again, with all of those zombies and parasites dying, you're likely to put Mark of Death on just about every enemy that you come in contact with. That of course doesn't die on the first couple of hits. 5 points in Frantic Summons for that minion speed and cast speed, 5 points in River of Bones for increased critical strike damage for them, increased critical strike chance, and of course for that leech, which is their main source of survivability. Your minions, as soon as you put these points in, will start to feel a lot better. Then we got 10 points in Heresy, 10 points in Blaze of Forlorn, 10 points in Right Death, 1 point in Disciplines Necromancy, 3 points in Moonlight Prior, 8 points in Tyrant, 1 point in Tyrant's Legion, 5 points in Cling to Life, and then our next couple of points will go in this to fill it out, but right now 2 points in Empty the Graves, and that's for that flat armor per minion that's active. So when you have all those zombies and all those parasites come up, you get a ton of flat armor, which is good for your survivability. For the character sheet, as you can see, we're only level 94 right now. We got to get those last few levels. The build planner will show you where to put those last passives. We're sitting at about 2,500 health. We don't have capped out resistances, but again, haven't really been struggling with them. We have so much ward generation that we ourselves don't really care. With that in mind, endurance is something that you don't need. You will want to get critical strike avoidance, which I haven't capped out yet. I still need to do my blessings in the correct setup. Again, the endurance is not needed. And then of course we're going to have a ton of flat armor, and once you pop all the parasites, this jumps up to about 1 to 2,000, which is really good for your damage reduction. You can cap out the resistance as I find better and better gear. Eventually I'll work towards it, but the main thing I'll be working towards is getting the 100% CSA first. But we did tier 4 Jeweler without it, as you can see in the gameplay at the beginning, so it's not actually necessary or mandatory, but of course definitely going to allow you to push further. Right now the main problem is minions die, not us so much, so it's getting the minions to have good survivability. And to do that, you don't really care about minion dodge because dots are what are going to kill your minions, so minion dodge rating, not really that good. You can't get a minion health regen or enough minion health regen to offset how much damage dots do in the end game. A lot of times they're taking over 1,000 damage per tick, and you can't get that much health regen, so the most important thing is for leech. And of course, there's only so many sources of leech for them, so you just want to give them as much health as possible, and this really comes into practice for the mages, because the mages leech a percentage of their maximum health. So we want to make sure that we're giving them as much health as possible. So I have almost 1,000% increased minion health. That's really the only minion stat you want to give. You don't really worry about minion damage too much. Like I said, minion dodge, minion health regen, don't worry about them either. You really just want to give them as much minion health as possible. Stack a lot of int if you can. That also gives them a lot of health, and that's going to make them feel a lot better. For the inventory, you can see I do have a couple of unique, since we are low life, and 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐸 and Last Steps of the Living are really nice for the build. And then of course I have a Reach of the Grave, because this gives our minions, which we are doing bow attacks and spells, some more leech, which is really going to help their survivability. And then the one thing for the interaction is the Lich's Scorn, and this gives us 𝐻𝐢𝐿𝐴 converted to cold. It gives our minions some chance for frostbite. We're not too worried about that or building into it, but it's the flat cold damage with spells and attacks per attached Infernal Shade for minions affected by 𝐻𝐻𝐿Ade, and that's when 𝐻𝐻𝐿Ade is cast. So we put on our 6 Infernal Shades, then you cast 𝐻𝐻𝐿Ade, and for 𝐻𝐻𝐿Ade's whole duration, it's going to count as if you have 6 Infernal Shades, even if they disappear for that whole duration of 𝐻𝐻𝐿Ade. And then they get Cold Pen based on our intelligence, so me with 53 intelligence is giving them 53% Cold Pen, which is why they do such good damage. Now, to make sure to get your minions to 100% crit chance, the main thing you're going to want on the helm is the increased, or the flat base crit chance for skeleton mages and skeletons, which you can get on the helm. You can also get it on the chest, but I don't have it on an 𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐸. You can run to the normal chest if you have it on there. Of course, it's going to reduce your survivability, but it's still doable. And then the other thing is, of course, getting these grand idols. I only have one. I'm looking for another one right now, which also gives them flat. You can wear up to 4 of these, which will really help their base crit chance. With River of Bones and other sources of increased crit chance will help you get them to that 100%. The other thing for idols that I'm wearing is that increased health. We want as much health as possible, so we get as much ward generation as possible, since we are low life, which also means we have the experimental fix on our gloves. And for everything else, you just want minion health. You can put minion damage, you can get health for yourself, resistances that you need, but make sure on all the other pieces of gear that you have as much minion health as possible. I got lucky on a cycle of putrescence and got minion health as well as flat health on that, which was really nice. This one's also going to give you at least 1 zombie being active at all times, which is really nice for the zombies. And then of course for the belt, we have the Volatile Zombie Summon on Potion Use, another experimental that you get from just killing off exiled mages. You'll get one eventually. Doesn't have to be 4. If you have a tier 1 that's just giving you 1 zombie, it's still going to be better than nothing. And for the amulet, increased health here as well. But that's going to be it for those. For the blessings, I haven't focused too much on my blessings at this moment. I still need to farm a lot of them. For instance, I don't have the Grand Survival of the Might for my critical strike avoidance. I definitely need to go farm the Reign of Dragons for that. I also want to end up changing my increased minion damage and my protection of Heroic for cold resist. I want to change these both to flat and increased armor for all the damage reduction I can get there. So I'm still farming the blessings, so don't go off what's here. And the build planner, I will have the correct ones that you're going to want to go for. And then for how to play this build, it's really simple. You basically just, once you've summoned your minions, you're going to go through and they're automatically going to attack enemies. And you just want to make sure that you have a 𝐻𝐻𝐿Ade active at all times with the Infernal Shades proc before. So like I said, 2 casts of Infernal Shade is going to have 6 of them pop up, then 1 𝐻𝐻𝐿Ade. And as soon as that 𝐻𝐻𝐿Ade is up, you're going to notice that their damage skyrockets. So from doing 5k, they're doing anywhere from 60 to 100k damage now, which is just nutty for them. And then at the same time, if you have your parasites, if I can move my minions, which they don't really want to move here, let's see if I can get them closer so that the parasites will be inside that 𝐻𝐻𝐿Ade. There we go. So when I have the parasites in there, those parasites and zombies are also going to get that flat cold damage. So this really helps with bosses. When I spam out my zombies, you can see that they are just doing tons and tons of damage. And you're getting tons and tons of hits with all of those parasites. You get tons of the armor shred. We got up to almost 400 stacks right there. Your damage will skyrocket, especially on single targets, if you have your parasites and zombies inside this Dread Shade ring as well. And then you'll get a ton of ward. As you can see, when I spam the zombies here, my ward is jumping well over 10k, which is really good for your survivability. And we do have increased potion drop chance on a couple of items. I think I have it on just the belt right now, but you can get it on the amulet as well. So you're always going to have potions just kind of keep throwing through, which is really nice for echoes and allowing you to just kind of speed run through there. That's going to be it for this build guide. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry that it took so long to put out, but it was a lot of testing, and then between work and playing, I just didn't have a whole lot of time to focus on it. But it is done now. I am really happy with how it came out, and it is able to do all the end game content of the game. So I'm going to leave you guys with some gameplay. Hope you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments below if it works well for you.